shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
And now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. I'm getting texts as the show goes. Streaming on mine is not working. Might need to call you back on Skype if it doesn't fire. All right, well, we are streaming on my end, and hopefully we'll get it all fixed up over at Red Voice Media. If not, they will have an archive of the show. So just let me know if you do hang up and call me back. That's just fine. I'll be waiting for you guys if you don't fire it up. Just, some of the unfortunate things that literally happened as the beginning of the show comes up, but that's okay. We're only talking Ellen Degenerate and the cult of Hollyweird, okay? And that cult of Hollyweird, they're promoting a very anti-human agenda, whether they know it or not. Whether they think that they're being benevolent or giving up their mea culpas for being rotten, sociopathic, sometimes psychotic people climbing their way to the top in a very, very disturbing landscape. Whether or not that's the case. Because I guarantee a lot of them really do buy into it. And they think like videos like this, we need to be nicer to Mother Nature. Ellen blames climate change for a relentless string of powerful storms that have battered California for more than a week. And she's behind these very, 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 disturbing waters. Ooh, the waters are disturbed. By the way, it looks like even Rockfin is not going. Oh, this is just a weird one. Rockfin went for a minute and now is no longer streaming. So it looks like Rockfin is also, unfortunately, getting the morning shaft. You'll have to be on Rumble, Twitter, or over on YouTube to be watching this golden broadcast. That sucks. I'm going to have to actually go in, I guess, and change that. We don't want that even up there if we're not streaming. So let's just delete it. I wonder if that's on their end. Not quite sure. Well, that's deleted. That might be drop frames on my end. Maybe it was time for a restart and I didn't do it. I guess we're going to find out. Anyhow, I hate talking shop while we are on the air, but it's hard not to. So, this whole idea of humans being bad and we got to save the earth is not based in any kind of scientific merit whatsoever when you really look at what real pollution is and how we never talk about real pollution anymore. We never really talk about the plastics, and we certainly don't talk about the biochemical changes to our planet from dumping those plastics everywhere. We don't talk about the hormones that are being leaked into the ecosystem. I mean, we never talk about radioactive material or the actual, negatives of coal, such as mercury runoff. That's a real thing. Okay, those are real things. You don't want mercury runoff. Mercury not so great for human beings. So they want to focus on carbon, 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 carbon. And I want to play the clip. And just to show you the idiocy of these people. Because it's over the top moron.
So, Montecito is under complete evacuation, the entire town. This is the 5-year anniversary from the fire and mudslides that killed so many people. And
let's just pause that as I answer the Skype-ins, and hopefully we are all connected on their end, and we were going to be getting that stream out. Doing it live. We do it live! So, here it is again. Ellen DeGeneres telling everybody we're bad because there's a flood. Because floods haven't happened throughout human history, apparently.
people lost their homes, their lives. This is crazy. On the 5-year anniversary, we are having unprecedented rain. This creek next to our house never flows, ever. Probably about 9 feet up, and it's going to go another 2 feet up. We have forces ready to evacuate. We need to be nicer to Mother Nature, because Mother Nature is not happy with us. Let's all do our part. Stay safe, everybody.
Do what part? Like, if we're really going to do our part, what you're going to need is a community to come together, right? You need to gather up some food, some dry goods, maybe some towels, winter coats, those things to keep people warm. And then hopefully your emergency services are good and you've upticked the amount of National Guard, which are going to be helping with that situation, which is one of the things that they're intended to do. Okay? Now, if we were really talking about maybe preventative measures, I would imagine that if we really wanted to stop a lot of this extreme weather, we could do so with the weather modification programs that they've been running for 50 plus years. Whether they be the type of program where they're seeding clouds and beyond. I made an entire picture on this, right? Solar radiation management is a term that is used, but then you also have HARP. Okay, and HARP is old technology, but for those that don't know, you're basically sending different types of wavelengths into the sky, and from that, you are either creating or dissipating different types of storm systems in many cases. These things are still classified for good reason, because what? Weather warfare is very stealth. Very stealth. In fact, I can't think of one time when one nation state versus another was able to point to another one and say, you waged weather warfare on us, shame on you. Now, you could get to the cloud seeding in Vietnam. Sure. Vietnam was just like a playground for DARPA back in the day. Do what you will. All right? But we don't even talk about the carbon that is emitted from warfare at all. So it's not on the table. It's like it doesn't exist. And Ellen DeGeneres, I'm going to sit out there with her dancing. And by the way, I'm just going to say it. Most people that have worked with Ellen haven't had the nicest things to say about her. I'll never forget watching Rogan back in the day. And he had Greg Fitzsimmons on. And Fitzsimmons was a writer on the show. He had signed the NDAs, all that other stuff. And he still couldn't help but say negative things about Ellen DeGeneres. All right? The persona, the front of a daily show. Of a daily show where it's all about promoting the agenda. I'll never forget, they also premiered the We Love the Earth Little Dicky collab that had like 20 of the biggest artists at the time, and it's all it starts out and it's so hot out there and there's a bunch of kids and they knock over a garbage can, they don't care. Associating again garbage and the mess with how hot it is and CO2 regulation and climate change. Listen, this is a system of command and control. That's what it's really about. And I've got a ton of different videos that we're going to be playing today, including this Matthew Burrows. And this is one of those spooks that's been around forever. And it's this piece from the director of National Intelligence, want to show people Burroughs here so you can check it out. He is part of the Atlantic Council, writes for them avidly, okay? And he is the former co-director of the New American Engagement Initiative, but we're talking about a long time spookles here. The Scowcroft Strategy Initiative, Brett Scowcroft, you're going to want to know him. You know, there's a big New World Order guy. All right, big time part, 10 years of which he spent at the National Intelligence Council as the premier analytic unit in the U.S. intelligence community. This guy is in there. And he's just going to tell you, sorry. Sorry. Well, this technology is just going to regulate everybody. And the excuse for the authoritarianism, the anti-human behavior, the fact that your standard of living has to be crushed, automation has to come in, you're no longer free, is that we're killing the earth. And NASA is a big proponent of that. They're big time into that. That's really one of the key things that NASA was set up and designed to do. All right? It was to obfuscate reality from the public and push any type of agenda that they needed to through psychological warfare. NASA, huge part of that. Huge part of that. Not a space agency. Space is part of it. They have collabs with the U.S. Air Force as well. I have this video. I wish I had the hard copy with me, but I copied it over. And it looks like, you know, kind of like their own internal propaganda and also to be put out for public use. 1963, I believe, to 1988. Okay? Although it could be to 85. I'm trying to think now. I think that's the 63 to 85. It's called The History of NASA. Might be to 88. I guess 88 would be more correct. Probably is 88. And it's actually hosted by this gentleman here. Let's find this person. Where did I put them? There they are right there. Okay. Dr. Arlen Bunderat Jr., another NASA guy forever. And look, the archive footage is incredible. And one of the reasons I want to show maybe like 5 minutes of this, because they get to Apollo 14 and they show you being on the moon and all that. That's good stuff. But what I liked was that they were showing you all these aircraft that had been declassified that they'd worked on. They talk about the propulsion systems that they're working on in joint programs with the Air Force. Okay. When we read, let's do it live. We'll go to my Twitter feed and we'll just scroll down. When we read this article from, about 17, 18 years ago, being pushed with, if we don't change our ways now, climate change will kill us all. We'll have 18 feet of new water. That's right, 18 feet rise of the sea level, decimating human life on Earth. Come on, where are we? See, I should have just saved the image. This is why scrolling is always not the best. I think I probably already scrolled past it since we're down to 6 days out, right? It's got to be. Man, we covered it live here on air. There's Berenson. There's the weirdness. Where did you go? There's the very expensive eggs. There's Andy Jacobson. There's mRNA. Here, we'll do it live so it's a little more entertaining. It's a lot of the stuff we did on the show yesterday. There's me covering the NASA docs, Epstein case. Maybe not. Maybe I don't have it here. Which sucks because if I didn't retweet that, I should have retweeted it. Maybe it's in my... If it's at my notifications, geez. But it's a big deal. I mean, it just shows that these guys that are making all these doomsday predictions, and a lot of them work at NASA and are putting that narrative. And in fact, when we look at the document here, all right, climate and the ecosystem is crashing. Let's just type in the words climate. No word for climate. Really? No. I believe that because I think they used the term ecosystem. It was more encompassing. Right? Well, where is it? Eco? There we go. That's telecommuters. That's not what we want. 1 to 29. Do I need to do crashing? Worldwide economy. Not so great. Economics. Recombinant. Economic. Man. Human operation. White coat. It's really towards the beginning. Let's see if we can find this. Let's do it here. There it is. Global warming. They were still using that term. So on the planet, global warming, pollution, deforestation. We never talk about real pollution anymore. Global warming. Again, sometimes they use that terminology. It's not there as much anymore, but it's even more than that. Where's that really big part of it, right? There's the plants irrigated by seawater, which, might be a good thing, but we don't want to put the nanotech into it. Let's see if the word crashing is in there as well. And then we're going to move forward for everybody. I guess not. That's terminology by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Dennis Bushnell, I guess. We may get back to that document because, again, we've only covered 2/3 of it. And we should really cover the last part of it. Lots of stuff in there. So, I want to show people that this whole agenda is one in which the same Bernaysian mantra is used again and again and again and again. We're going to play the Build Back Better compilation, but I want to remind people that the real Build Back Better, right, that was, when I say the real one, the first time you heard it in the United States was in April 2020 via Andrew Capo Cuomo, the guy that they were promoting as America's governor at the apex of the nightmare that was going on at the time, the guy who had the daily briefings, and he did a whole presentation on it. It was April 17th. If you know what? Is it April 17th? Because if it is, I suppose I could bring that up really quick too, because I think that I'm pretty sharp. I could be wrong. 17th, 2020, Cuomo conference. Let's see. So there's the Syracuse, New York one. Okay, and I'm almost sure that's the exact date. Let's go to videos, because you'll know it as well. Is this it? This is the 27-minute one. Because he invokes 9/11 in it, the whole nine. Let's see. Let's see if we got it. And he talks about building back better right away. This may or may not be it. Testing is a major challenge, blah, 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 blah. Surge and flex. There was another one, stabilizing finances. I mean, it could have been April 20th as well. I like to get the dates right. Let's see if this is it. Can we get a transcript on it? There's 16th, 15th. Maybe it was the 14th. Maybe the 14th. I mean, the guy was doing it every single day. And he's the first one that invoked the Build Back Better. We've played it here. Our actions determine it, blah, blah, blah. This guy was Mr. Talking Point, by the way. I mean, he had presentations. He was trying to invoke the state government. Taking off your shoes. Let's see. Take off your shoes. This is how I find things. And then Cuomo. Let's see. Moment of reflection. Here it is right here. Here it is right here. See, it you find the little things. It was on April 17th. Yeah. I was dead on. I just didn't find it. Okay, so he actually does the Build Back Better thing. And it was... Oh, this is April 18th. But that's weird that it would have that here. Let's see. See, vision for a better tomorrow. Reimagine workplace. This is it.
But we talk about the new normal. This also has to be an opportunity where after this horrendous period that we have gone through on every level, after the exorbitant cost of this, the personal pain of this, the death of this, this has to be one of those moments in time when we look back where we say society transformed.
I mean, this guy was their mouthpiece in the United States. So actually, it looks like it did happen on the 17th. They clipped this out and aired it on the 18th because it's just part of it. But this is it. You see, the make a better tomorrow, they have to build back better.
It was a learning and growth and transformational period where growth and evolution was accelerated. Yes, society took a terrible blow, but it became a moment of reflection where all sorts of new reforms and innovations happened.
So in other words, it was an excuse to further restrict the populace and build a domestic police state, and he's proud of that.
That's what we have to do with this period when they look back at it. So our goal is not, let's get up and turn the machine back on and keep going the way we were. No. How do you make the changes now that you've been talking about in some cases for years, by the way?
So once
but
again,
you never had the political will.
Now he's talking about political will. He's laying it out that we're going to use this politically in every way, shape, and form. April 17th. Most of the country had been in lockdown less than a month at that point, right? New York rolled it out mid-March. All in New York City was the first part, but he slowly got you into it, slowly boiled that frog. Here it is. By the way, can we get thumbs up over here and over on Rumble? It does help so much for this information to get out there. So again, here it is. Cuomo is we're going to play the Build Back Better compilation, but Cuomo's the initial guy.
Will to do it, or it was too hard, or it was too difficult. We talk about environmental changes that we're going to make, but we never really do it. We talk about issues of income inequality, but we never really get there. You know, we talk about changes to our public transit system, but it's too hard, it's too controversial. All right, well now you have an opportunity in this window to really make changes and reforms and improve things in a way you haven't. And by the way, if you went through this, and you went through this pain and aggravation and suffering, and you didn't learn, well, then shame on us. Then shame on us, because there are so many lessons to learn.
And the lesson is, bend the knee to the narrative now, or we're going to make it worse for you. That's all. That's the only lesson. And really the lesson for most people should have been that if you bend the knee to the narrative, what? You don't get anything. You have to fight the narrative all the time if you want your freedoms. If you want to stop guys like this from acting like total authoritarian gangster tyrants. But then, you know, again, they get rid of him later on because he becomes a liability via the nursing home story, if you were following it. And they made it about grab ass.
And then you come back better than you were.
Oh.
9/11. New York took a terrible beating. This nation took a terrible beating. We learned from it. We grew. We're better. 9/11 transformed the country. If I told you before 9/11 you were going to take off your shoes when you went to an airport before you could get on an airplane, and they were going to go through every bag and every, you would say, I'm never doing that. 9/11 said there's a different world. Look at all the security measures we now have post 9/11 that we would have never envisioned.
You notice how you started with the shoes? And now you're in the scanner like this. And then you still get the pat down on the way out. And they still look at all your bags. And then even after it's gone on the X-ray and they've taken it out and they've looked inside, they dust it for explosive stuff.
We went through Hurricane Sandy. We didn't build back what was. You build back better than before.
Oh, you build back better than before. There it is. If anybody can find me a clip of any other politician, this is how you know this is coordinated. Any other politician in the world that used the terminology before Cuomo, I'd like to see. He lays it out here for you, folks. He told you that the Build Back Better thing was going to be 9/11 transformational. A month in this country. He knew what was up. He got the script.
Take that moment, you learn that lesson, and you improve society. We have to do that here. And we have to do it affirmatively. It doesn't just happen. You have to say, we paused, New York pause. You paused. You reflect, you learn, you grow, and you move forward. Look at what we learned about the public health system. You know what we learned about the public health system? There is no public health system capacity. Hospitals had the number of beds they needed to operate. Well, what in case of an emergency? There was no emergency.
You know, he's got a lot of nerve even getting into this because we know what happened. He didn't use the Javits Center. He didn't use the cruise ship because that wasn't part of the plan. All right. I'm now going to move to every other globalist slimeball politician using the same terminology you just saw Cuomo use. He's the guy that invoked the Build Back Better. And remember, they were calling him America's governor. People were saying he should run, right? Instead, they put Zombie J in there.
It's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, Britain after coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
It's not a front for the conspiracy. It's Bernaysian slogans and talking points that are taking on a global consciousness. All right? They're all using it. Okay, they showed Cuomo at one point do it, but that, again, I found that first clip. Because I remember I followed it every single day. Every single day. And when I heard Build Back Better, that was before I even came to terms that the Great Reset was really being promoted as heavily as it was. I was seeing people talk. I was like, really? That was around that April. I couldn't even wrap my head around that they would be so arrogant about it. But they have been. And this was the beginning of just seeing an in-your-face post-truth world moving like a locomotive train. Moving like a locomotive train, folks.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
And by the way, there's Prince Harry there. I was on the show yesterday. I was kind of defending Prince Harry. And I'll continually defend him for what the media wants to come after him on. But that doesn't mean he's not establishment. He's fed the same damn talking points. He's on Stephen Colbert's show. We had a whole thing about Stephen Colbert's little dance numbers yesterday, if you were over on the premium train.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy.
I can always do without the slow down demon chat. Jonesy. Alex used to love to do that in films like the police state films, the early ones, and it's even in 9/11, A Road to Tyranny.
Love that slow down. Couldn't get enough of it.
Not my cup of tea. So I've got a whole thing planned where we're going to go over some of the medical tyrannies here. And I want to play this clip. I showed you Matthew Burrows, but this is Burrows laying it down. Then I want to talk about Biden a little bit and these quote-unquote classified documents, what they are, when they were there, what the implications are, etc., etc. Went over it a little bit with John via Mixed Martial Mindset. Have some time to marinate it. I do want to remind everybody that the uncensored portion of the broadcast does begin in a half an hour over at Red Voice Media, and that is redvoicemedia.com/uncensored or /Jason. Either way you sign up. It is $1 for the first week, $10 for the first month, all months actually, or you can lock in 1 year for $100. We're doing it 4 days a week live here, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern time. I hope that everybody that is joining us is enjoying the broadcast. I do want to remind you, you can always go over to Podbean, theinfowarrior.podbean.com, and listen to the second hour in real time, and we always have that up there. And then every 2 weeks it gets released for free anyway. So I want to thank everybody who has supported myself. So here is a Director of National Intelligence video. And Burroughs here is just telling you, you're going to be enslaved and you're going to like it. Global Trends 2030, Alternative Worlds. And this guy, again, Atlantic Council guy, mouthpiece for the agenda. Due to the potential risks posed by disruptive technology such as smartphones and social media, outweigh the utility.
This is a critical question as to whether we could see over the next 15, 20 years, I'd say a shift a little bit away from the individual back to the state in terms of its ability to use IT in order to control, in order to really monitor what's happening in society. I think if we look back to the printing press as an example of a new technology that when it came into being favored dissidents, favored Protestants, obviously, and you could say, as we talk about it, in the work Empower Individuals, but over time began to be used by the state for its purposes. And
so what I like about this is he's putting it in correct terms. Technology is that double-edged sword, right? The printing press empowered individuals. Now, everybody didn't have a printing press out there, but if you educated yourself, and even if you wrote it down on a piece of parchment or paper, shared it with somebody else that did have it, your ideas could get out to the masses, right? And the state saw that, began to consolidate power over it. We see it now more than ever, and really had a lot of it revealed to us, especially when the print media was big in this country through Operation Mockingbird, although radio and television had largely taken over the public consciousness. The magic box is the magic box, tough to beat. But instead of empowering the individual, the state, the collective, the authoritarians have used it to enslave the minds of large swaths of the populace.
And the state actually reasserting its authority using those same instruments. I tend to think that the individual probably is still going to have the upper hand in 2030, but obviously with the big data and the ability and increasingly to exploit big data, that you could see that government actually will be able to assert more of its authority using that instrument. Now, I think in our society, I'm not as worried about that. I think, government can use that for good purposes. I mean, for understanding in real time what's happening to the economy, what's happening in the environment. But you could also think in terms of authoritarian states that they will be empowered by this, that they will have a much better sense.
I would argue that we live in an authoritarian state. They have constantly tried to move the minds of men and women across this land away from rugged individualism. I love rugged individualism. Can't get enough rugged individualism. I know all you anarchists out there love to talk about the non-aggression principle. That's fantasy, by the way. That's not a real thing. Okay? You can live it in your own life. You cannot control other people. And you can't make other people live by your laws, your natural laws, or any of that stuff. You can try to abide by natural laws. That's great. But I think being an individual, being independent, obviously, is the apex of empowerment. All right. So we live in a largely authoritarian state. That's the reality.
I think it's less likely that countries will try to cut themselves off from the internet. I mean, I think, as we've shown with the Arab Spring, that hasn't worked. I don't think it's working particularly in China either. So I think that is less likely of an outcome. Although, if you got into a major conflict, you could see how countries would want to break away from the internet to protect themselves, actually.
So let me explain what he's telling you there. He's saying for narrative management, if a large-scale war breaks out, they would like to restrict access to the internet. And a great example of that would be Ukraine and Russia. Now, Russia liked the fact they were knocking out communication systems via the internet in Ukraine. Ukraine comes to the United States, and then the Musker nuts in the gang start giving them all sorts of satellites with the Starlinks they've launched and the Blackjack program. And sure, a big aspect of that is geolocation and hooking them up to the Ghosts and the Sidewinder drones and what they're calling kamikaze drones, etc. But you also have to have digital communications as well, aka internet systems. And that's another huge part of it. And you want that for narrative control as well, right? So he's telling you basically, it would be advantageous at some point if you could restrict internet access. And really a lot of that is happening in real time via the cooperation with search engines, because these tech companies are what? Trojan horse civilian systems for the military-industrial complex.
I don't believe so. I don't, even though we face the threat from cyber criminals, from uses by unfriendly states, that certainly this is a huge issue within the intelligence community about how you ensure cyber security. I think, though, the advantages that we have seen in terms, first, for the economy. I mean, there are lots of studies showing particularly that America has gained huge advantages from being the first to really incorporate this, integrate this into our work processes, to export it to the rest of the world. So in a strictly economic sense, I think you can prove that the internet and all the related IT has been a great boon for the U.S.
Well, obviously, but there was huge bubbles surrounding the internet. We are far from the most advanced in communications, especially when you talk about public internet for the people. That's right. There's free Wi-Fi all over the place. Now, one of the promises and appeals to some of this 5G network is eventually they say everybody's going to have the free Wi-Fi. Same with Starlink. Everybody's going to have the free Wi-Fi. Nonsense. Now, you may be required to be hooked up to that because you're not only talking about the Internet of Things, you're talking about the Internet of Bodies as well. And we're going to get into the Internet of Bodies. The Pfizer CEO, Albert Bourla, talking about the implantable biomedicine that we've talked about. Again, not just the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Bodies. I'm going to talk about the Immuniband. We're going to play that. But I want to go back over here to Andrew Capo Cuomo, because this was really the coming out party, reimagining everything, reimagining the workplace, reimagining the health system, etc. He was their guy. He was their mouthpiece. He was their go-to.
There's a different world. Look at all the security measures we now have post 9/11 that we would have never envisioned. We went through Hurricane Sandy. We didn't build back what was. You build back better than before. Mm-hmm. You take that moment, you learn that lesson, and you improve society. We have to do that here. And we have to do it affirmatively. It doesn't just happen. You have to say, we paused. New York paused. You paused. you reflect, you learn, you grow, and you move forward.
The truth is, we paused. We instilled fear. We had an agenda on the table. Now we will use that agenda to solve all of these problems. Problem, reaction, solution. The Hegelian dialectic. We couldn't get these things passed before. Now we can, because we've scared the shit out of people.
Look at what we learned about the public health system. You know what we learned about the public health system? There is no public health system capacity.
Lie.
Hospitals had the number of beds they needed to operate. Well, what in case of an emergency? There was no emergency capacity in hospitals. Nobody had beds left empty. Oh, that wing is in case there's an emergency. Then we would use that wing. It didn't exist. Why not? Well, that's not what we did.
So, and you know, since we all need these emergency wings with staff, it's weird how many staff got fired during this, who lost their jobs, especially in New York State, where you had the biggest mass exodus of people, period.
So, how do you improve the public health system? How do you improve the emergency response? Well, we never had to deal with a pandemic before. By the way, what is a pandemic? Okay, well, now we did.
It's a power grab, by the way, obviously. Again, putting out the agenda, I think this is April 17th, okay? April 17th, and it's right
And
here.
Now let's learn. And how are we going to be ready for the next situation like this? Because there will be another. I don't know what it is. I don't know when it is. I don't know if this virus comes back in a second wave. But there will be something.
So he's telling you right now. I don't know, but definitely, again, we're definitely going to want to impose this authoritarianism again. So we better reimagine everything.
And we have to be ready and better for it. And not just what you learned, but what have we been talking about doing that we should be doing that this is now an opportunity to do?
This is an opportunity. We're going to reimagine everything.
We've been talking about reimagining the workforce and workplace. Does everybody actually have to drive into the office every day? Or did we learn that there are ways to telecommute and work from home where it's actually more efficient, it's actually more effective? What do we do about a transit system? And how do we make it safer? Not just the way we've been talking about, but also from a public health point of view.
And by the way, think about how safe the public transit system has gotten in New York. They've had more people pushed on to the subway tracks in the last 2 years, I think, than the last 10 combined. Maybe more. That's how safe the public transit system is. And they got plenty of cameras everywhere, guys. It's all about reimagining and your safety and making things smart. No, we'll defund the police. Have you ever been to New York City and you're sitting there and you're in the subway system and you've never been in a large-scale city subway system? By the way, most others pale in comparison. Even, I mean, I guess the DC Metro, sure. Yeah, I haven't been to Europe. I can't judge. But New York City, man, it's huge. It's massive. And you often, especially with the amount of insane people that you're around, you wonder, how is it even this orderly? Well, it's not. That's how much they care about your safety at the public transit system.
And how are we now smarter about public interactions? I can't tell you how many doctors now have come to me and said, you know, I said for years we shouldn't be shaking hands, that it's just a total way to transmit germs and viruses, et cetera. So,
okay, you see what he just did there? No one calls Cuomo out on this. He took it Fauci style. Remember when Fauci, and again, Fauci's credibility should have been crushed the moment that he said we should probably stop shaking hands for good. And Andrew Cuomo piggybacked on that in April of 2020 while telling you about building back better and a reimagining society and using it as a 9/11 moment. He piggybacked on it and said, boy, I can't tell you how many doctors have come up to me, probably shook his hand, by the way, and said, boy, shaking hands, we should just get rid of that. The ancient form of, hey, how are you? A lot you can tell from a man or woman's handshake. And, you know, when I meet somebody, that's the first thing it doesn't matter the social situation. You know, sometimes people love to come in for the hug. If I've known somebody for a long time, like in the virtual space, or I've had them on my show, we've had conversations, I usually do go in for the hug. I'm a hugger on that level. If I'm just meeting somebody, anybody, man or woman, I like a firm handshake. I want to see, you know, the reaction. I want to look somebody in the eye. Hey, great to meet you. They want to take that away out of fear while they build back better. And that is reimagining not only United States society, that's reimagining the social mores of the human being. The ancient art of shaking hands, and this guy piggybacked on it.
How do we take this moment, since we are paused anyway, and actually come back smarter? I also believe it'll work. It's a moment of personal reflection, you know. We've been in a different circumstance. We've been in a different circumstance vis-a-vis our family. What have we learned during this heartbreak and during this crisis?
That you will restrict our access to our families and only give us certain options, which I can't talk about here on YouTube, or I might get in trouble, and that your scandals will be obfuscated by nonsensical grab ass and sexual harassment, which you're now resuing the city for all of your costs. And then you'll put another demon into office via the lieutenant governorship, Kathy Hochul, who we have to pretend, even though I'm no BlackRock Lee Zeldin guy, just edged out the victory because it's a blue state. Yeah, there weren't just a ton of Democrats that were enraged by Cuomo and his behavior and his restrictions. I imagined that. Just like I imagine that Joe Biden doesn't know where he is most of the time. Okay? And that's why this story is kind of important, because it looks like if you typed in classified documents last night, and I did it, the first story that came up were classified documents from Biden's time as VP discovered in private office. The big controversy is, we know they knew about this all the way back in November. Obviously, they made a big hubbub about Trump and his documents, even though he could have declassified them anytime as president, wouldn't have had access to them beforehand. Now, the narrative is, and we're going to show you this, that possibly he took these illegally while he was vice president and would not have had the right to do so, by the way. Who knows if they're setting him up, but the fact that CNN is reporting on this and showing Biden talking about the, Trump and classified documents shows me that they may be ready to get rid of him somehow politically. And now putting Kamala Harris in there, who knows? But when you have interactions like this one, and I played it last night on the show, where Joe Biden's being led through this Salvation Army. He gets introduced to a gentleman who works for the Salvation Army, and it appears that Joe thinks that he's Secret Service because he doesn't know where he is.
And here we have folks from the Salvation Army who also
So he mentions the Secret Service, and now he spent time with him twice, punches him in the stomach. This guy's like, what the hell is this guy talking about? I work for the Salvation Army. He's like, wait a minute, this guy's he's not Secret Service. He's not in the, where am I? What's going on? Oh, boy. We have fun here, don't we? We have some fun. So, I want to play this clip I want to get to not only the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Bodies. This is what they mean by reimagining everything. This is the real track, trace, database society. This also works into the CBDCs, right? He was talking about economic systems, etc. So let's play this. This is this is that biomedical nightmare that they want us to be part of.
It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet, and once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
Compliance. Compliance. You understand? It's about compliance. Oh, you don't want to take this? Too bad. We're going to know if you did or not. We're going to know whether that pill or drug or injection, etc., is interacting with your very biology and where you're geologically located as well at the same time. Compliance. We want your compliance. And it's a good thing that we had things on the outside like the immunoband for compliance.
If you got the vaccine, you're probably thinking, now what? How can I show the world that I am vaccinated? How can I begin to reclaim some normalcy in my life?
Yeah, by eating outside with a mask on.
Well, now you can wear the Immunoband adjustable bracelet. It's the only secure way to take your vaccine card with you wherever you go and share it with whoever you'd like. Each bracelet has a unique QR code that is pin protected, and its distinctive design lets the world know that you've been vaccinated. So let's band together to beat this pandemic. One step, one vaccination, and one Immunoband bracelet at a time.
Compliance. Compliance. And you look at this, and just so everybody knows, of course, that Pfizer board member Scott Gottlieb leaned on Twitter to censor tweets which argued against passports such as that and claimed natural immunity was, you couldn't say anything about natural immunity. Let's just say that. You can say it was stronger than you know what. This is the latest Twitter file dump. Again, I'm glad a lot of this stuff is coming out. Going back to Biden really quick, you know, why didn't they appoint a special counsel? Duh. And by the way, you look at the classified documents that have been found before the midterms. It's apparently on November 2nd, I think you're going to find out that it was way before this. They're now saying that in this office, he could have had them from his VP days. Look, Joey B was quite the criminal. Now, just because he's quite the criminal doesn't mean that this couldn't be a setup to have something on him later on, because he doesn't know where he is. And even, you know, to these people in charge, they want a malleable puppet. But a Kamala and Bermas would probably do at this point. Joe can't talk. Joe can't talk. Even when they clip him up in the mainstream where they're propping up the mainstream media nonsense that they want to, he can't speak. He can't say kleptocracy. I know it's a big word, Joe, but you used to be able to. You used to be a slick politician. So we just went over Immunoband. I want to integrate this now because all of it's the same. Internet of Bodies, the climate change agenda, and then the CBDC digital currencies. They all fall into the same command and control lineup. That's what they are. All right, so this is the Davos crowd talking about a central bank digital currency.
And I think we didn't talk about yet, there are two ways on central bank digital currencies. One is the wholesale piece. So basically our interactions as a commercial bank with the central bank. And here I would say it makes a lot of sense. This is new technology coming in. We can talk about it, advantage, disadvantage, but at the end it's an efficiency game and maybe it's a security game, makes a lot of sense.
It's an efficiency and security game. It's not really an assets game. Because these digital currencies, especially the CBDCs, are blockchain extensions of the SDR special drawing right unit of zeros and ones that is made out of thin air. That's why it's their wet dream.
A completely different ball game it is when you start to talk about the retail, central bank digital currency. Not because it's digital. I can pay this digital with my mobile. Has nothing to do with central bank digital currency. But I think the fundamental change is the underlying business model is as a retail customer, as a citizen, will have an account with the central bank. I don't have just an account with a commercial bank. I have it with the central bank, which has a lot of advantages for me. It's safe, it feels good.
Oh, it feels good and it's safe. I can turn it off whenever. We convinced them it was safe and it felt good. Who sits there and is like, boy, man, this currency feels pretty safe and it feels good?
But there are some challenges with this because the central bank is ultimately, it's a public office. Commercial banks are under a commercial regime. Central banks are not under a commercial regime. What about interest rates on an account like that? When things are going well, how does this look like? Oh, on a bank run, how does this look like? Is this accelerating the bank run because I have a safe account with somebody? So these are then the fundamental questions. That's why I think it's excellent to see that 90%, 87%, I think, central banks are looking into that and try, and we need to figure out how that all can work. But having said what is ongoing, I think we are now, for 10 years, 15 years in that new, call it technology, blockchain. We see now the market is collapsing. Okay, let's see in 5 or 10 years, something will survive.
Something will survive. We will back something. And remember, WEF, World Economic Forum, Davos crowd, they've talked about Ripple, aka XRP, as the model for the CBDC. We've sat here and talked about smart contracts and Cardano being used in the biomedical system and having AI robots run off of that. Let's go to Klaus Nutzschwab and his vision of the fourth industrial revolution. Old Nut Schwabington, my favorite. Let's see. Come on. Yes, I don't need that part of it. Thank you. Yes, I don't need the explanations. Thanks. Can I just get
Au bout de ça, on parle de puces qu'on pourra s'implanter. Ce sera quand ça?
Certainement dans les 10 années à venir.
In the next 10 years, yeah.
D'abord, on va les implanter dans nos vêtements, c'est-à-dire wearables, comme on le dit. Et après, on pourrait s'imaginer qu'on les implante dans nos cerveaux ou dans nos topos. Et à la fin, peut-être il y a une communication directe
we're just gonna
entre
implant them in our skin for communications.
Et le monde digital.
Oh.
Ce que nous voyons, c'est une sorte de fusion du monde physique, digital et biologique.
On appelle quelqu'un, on n'a même plus le réflexe de devoir prendre un appareil, ça se fait naturellement. Hein. La technique continue le corps.
Oui, vous parlez et vous dites, je veux maintenant
I want to be connected to anyone now.
Avec n'importe qui. Et d'abord, vous avez les robots
personalized bots.
Et j'ai vu que M. Zuckerberg a prédit qu'à la fin de l'année, il va avoir son robot, son butler personnalisé qui est à sa disposition.
Donc, comme dans Downton Abbey, on aura son butler personnel, son serviteur, son esclave.
Oui, mais il y a une différence. C'est un serviteur qui, avec l'intelligence artificielle, apprend et qui n'est pas seulement votre assistant pour des travaux manuels, qui peut vraiment être un partenaire intellectuel.
So the robots, they're not just going to do physical and manual labor. You're going to be hooked into them, and they're actually going to be your intellectual partner, your avatars. This is the game. Remember, not everybody can be a robot polisher, according to Klaus Nutzschwab. Not everybody can polish those robots. Okay, this is the part of the show where we go over to premium broadcast. I'm going to give the cue to the producers. Hopefully they got everything up and running over at redvoicemedia.com/Jason, redvoicemedia.com/uncensored. I'm going to be reposting this via Rockfin, obviously. And we're going to do a whole bunch of NASA stuff on the flip side of this. I also got a bunch of other stories that we may or may not hit. And we're going to start with this NASA piece from, again, 63 to 888. Found this DVD. I always pick these things up, and I always watch them for the archive footage. But showing that NASA is working on all sorts of different types of planes and propulsion systems back in the 60s and 70s. And they even show you this really interesting plane that kind of hovers like a drone in some cases. So let's say goodbye to the audience one at a time. All right. And let's start that up with saying goodbye to YouTube. It's real. Thumbs it up, subscribe.